Well, like I said, I was in California last week. I go away for 1 week, and what happens while I'm gone? All heaven breaks loose. It seems somebody owes us an apology. Now, one reason that we come to church is to do what? It's to get away from it all, right? You know what I'm talking about, the political rigmarole that's going on, you know? Get away from presidential executive orders, get away from protests, get away from talking heads and political pundits and cabinet nominations and filibusters. And this structure is, after all, it's called what? It's called a sanctuary. A sanctuary. We don't need the real world invading our sacred space, for crying out loud. We don't need to mix the world outside with the world inside. Now, I know a lot of people here either weren't in the country at the time Seinfeld was on, or too young to remember Seinfeld, or didn't like Seinfeld, but I'm going to use a Seinfeld illustration. One of my favorites. There was an episode of Seinfeld when George's new girlfriend, Susan, wanted to be introduced to George's friends, Jerry and Elaine and Kramer, and so she could hang out with them. Right? Well, George would have none of it. Yeah, those who remember the episode might remember what he said. He said, "This world here," you know, he argued in Jerry's apartment, "this is George's sanctuary. If Susan comes into contact with this world, his worlds collide. Anybody knows you got to keep your worlds apart." Now, that's exactly how many of us feel when the temptation arises to mix religion and politics. Worlds collide, and as anybody knows, you've got to keep your worlds apart. And saints, that is why John Scholl, the bishop of the Greater New Jersey United Methodist Conference, our conference, he owes us a big apology. Last week, while I was away, after the president signed his executive order banning travel from 7 Muslim nations, our bishop posted this on Facebook. What's happening to our nation? We have been a people built on welcoming others, providing opportunity, and embracing people who desire to work hard and pursue a better life. That was my family's case, who came from Holland and Germany. More than 20% of our Greater New Jersey staff immigrated from other countries. My executive assistant and administrative assistant immigrated from other countries. The Creator apes about who we are becoming. Really? How dare our bishop mix religion and politics? Worlds collide, you know, and anybody knows, Bishop, you got to keep your worlds apart. You owe us an apology, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call him first thing Monday, and I'm going to get him in here to apologize to us in person next Sunday. Don't anybody tell him I said that. Oh, shoot. But anyway, you know who else owes us an apology? The entire United Methodist Church owes us an apology. That's who. Suffer and succotash. Do we need the United Methodist Church telling us where to stand on immigration? After all, we're all here. We made it safely, and we did it by the book. Heck, a couple of my ancestors even came over on the Mayflower. You can look it up, I kid you not. So what's the United Methodist stance on immigration? Well, listen to this political drivel from the 2012 social principles of our denomination. We, the United Methodist Church, recognize, embrace, and affirm all persons, regardless of country of origin, as members of the family of God. We urge the church and society to recognize the gifts, contributions, and struggles of those who are immigrants and to advocate for justice for all. We oppose immigration policies that separate family members from each other or that include detentions of families with children. And we call on all local churches to be in ministry with immigrant families. Boom! Again, worlds collide. Our denomination owes us an apology. Who's running this denomination anyway? A bunch of namby-pambies, tree-hugging do-gooders? Must be the only denomination that's taking on this immigration thing. Well, I started researching, because that's what we do during the week. I know some people think I get paid a lot for 1 hour of work, but actually, during the week, we're working on this. Anyway, I started to research, and I wish I hadn't, because somebody else owes us an apology, and you're probably thinking, yeah, another Methodist snowflake. But actually, it's a guy named Russell Moore, president of the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. He calls for our president to reconsider his recent ban on refugees. What in the world is happening to the Southern Baptists? Are they getting soft? Geez, at one time they were opposed to the civil rights movement. Now this Russell Moore, obviously a deluded man of the cloth, in a letter to Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell wrote, in June 2016, the Southern Baptist Convention reaffirmed its decades-long commitment to care for and administer to refugees. Achieving the right balance between compassion toward refugees, one of the most vulnerable groups of people around us, and protection of Americans is crucial if the United States is to remain a model for freedom around the world. Now this makes no sense whatsoever. We can understand how the Methodist Church, who are a well-known progressive denomination, would take a stand against discrimination against foreigners, but the conservative Southern Baptist? You know, what is this world coming to? I'll tell you what the world's coming to. Worlds collide, boom! You Southern Baptists ought to know by now, when it comes to religion and politics, you've got to keep your worlds apart. Okay, everybody, take a deep breath. Relax a little bit, okay? It's just the Methodist and the Baptist, right? Well, against my better judgment, I kept digging into my research. And guess who else is sticking his nose in our business? The Pope. You have got to be kidding. The Pope spoke out as well. Okay, what did old Francis blabbing about this time? Well, he said this. He said, it's hypocrisy to call yourself a Christian and chase away a refugee or someone seeking help, someone who's hungry or thirsty. Toss out someone who is in need of help. If I say I'm a Christian but do these things, I'm a hypocrite. The nerve of that guy. Who does he think he is? The Pope? Never mind. Anyway, it's as if that wasn't insulting enough. He went on to say, the sin that Jesus condemns most is hypocrisy, which is precisely what is happening when someone claims to be a Christian but does not live according to the teaching of Christ. You cannot be a Christian without living like a Christian. So Pope Francis is saying that it's not enough to say, I'm a Christian. I actually have to live like a Christian? Give me a break, right? Well, since he's such a chatty Cathy, there's something else we need to hear from the Pope. He needs to say it to us right now. He needs to say, I apologize. I apologize for mixing religion and politics. I didn't mean to make worlds collide. Please just continue coming to church. Don't worry about what's happening out there. Just take care of your own soul, mind your own business, and everything will be just fine. Do that, Pope Francis, and at least we'll be back on speaking terms. Okay, so that's it, right? We got Methodists and Baptists and Catholics. Apologies accepted. Nobody else. All right, Quakers. All right, Quakers. That's an easy one, right? We all know Quakers are on this, right? Please. So I went on and again, against my better, I checked it. Let me see. I got a list here. Who else is against this thing? Presbyterians, Lutherans, Episcopalians, Church World Service, Council for Christian Colleges and Universities, Korean Churches for Community Development, the National Association of Evangelicals, the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, the Wesleyan Church, the AME Church, the AME Zion Church, yada, 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 yada. They all owe us an apology. Now, wait a minute. You know, we know also, Franklin Graham and Jerry Falwell Jr. and a few others are in favor of the president's executive ban from certain refugees. But whether you're on their side or the other side, that's still mixing religion and politics. You know, and you know, Franklin Graham, Jerry Falwell Sr. and Jr. and others like them, they've been mixing religion and politics for decades, right? So, get them in here because they owe us an apology as well. It's only fair that we get apologies from both sides. Okay, so what? So what if almost every Christian denomination has come out in opposition to this executive order on immigration? So what? After all, we're just one religion, right? There's a lot of religions in the world. I bet the Jews were super excited to see Muslims denied entry into the good old US of A. Well, you're not going to believe what I found out this week. 2 large Orthodox Jewish groups responded to the executive order by warning against policies that would place any limits on immigration based on religion. And this was a combined statement by the Orthodox Jewish Union and the more liberal Rabbinical Council of America. Matter of fact, all 4 major American Jewish denominations. And I'm hearing it is extremely rare for all 4 of these movements, scanning from extremely conservative and extremely liberal, to agree on anything. They don't agree on LGBT rights. They don't agree on Israel policy. And in this, they united against the president's action. Friends, I ask you, what is this world coming to? Well, apparently it's coming to our very own neighborhood. Because just last week, the Metuchen-Edison Area Interfaith Clergy Association, consisting of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim ministers, priests, rabbis, imams, the same troublemakers who put together that Martin Luther King service a couple weeks ago, they issued the following statement. We, the clergy of the Metuchen-Edison Area Interfaith Clergy Association, know what it is to be refugees. Our common ancestor Abraham himself was forced to leave the land of Canaan in search of food during famine. Our people of faith know what it is to leave a place due to persecution and fear. We know what happens to those seeking refuge who are turned away at the door and sent home. May we all remember, may we all find love for one another, and may the heart of our nation open up once again in righteousness to all those suffering who come in need. The Metuchen-Edison Area Interfaith Clergy Association. Who are these people? Oh, that's right, we're in it. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, so this is both national and local, we get it. But in light of all this, I have one question, and that is this. Where are they getting all this stuff? You know, all these Christians and Jews and Muslims, Protestants and Catholics and bishops and popes, where do they get off having the nerve to make these political and religious worlds collide so? Where are they getting it? Because when we find out where they're getting it, you know, we will root it out, and then when we do, we're going to find out who started all this nonsense. And let me tell you, if some other namby-pamby do-gooder tree huggers, they're going to owe us an apology as well. Well, I've got some good news. Because you have a pastor who's willing to research and find this stuff out. And I found out where these guys are that are getting this stuff from. And believe it or not, they're in this very room. Take a look around. I found them. They're in here. You have one of these in your pew? Get rid of it. The first person in this book, by the way, I read it. First person in this book that owes us an apology is a fellow by the name of Moses. That's my southern New Jersey accent. Fellow by the name of, that was one of my grandpa's favorite words. There's a fellow by the name of Moses. Listen to what he said. The tradition is that Moses wrote the Torah, right? It says this in Exodus 23, right after the 10 Commandments. You shall not follow a majority in wrongdoing. You shall not pervert the justice due to the poor in their lawsuits. Do not kill the innocent or those in the right, for I will not acquit the guilty. You shall not oppress a resident alien. You know the heart of an alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. Now, the last time I heard, Moses was buried somewhere in the valley of Moab, and the scripture tells us we don't know where, and it's good for him. Because if we knew where he was, we'd dig him up and bring him here and stand him up before us and demand that he apologize. Not oppress an alien. Police. But you know, one of them could be a terrorist. For sure, Moses owes us an apology. In fact, he had the power to part the Red Sea. Let's see if he has the power to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. We're going to make Moses pay for it. Anyway, Moses is not the only one in the Old Testament who's in trouble. The psalmist wrote this. Give justice to the weak and the orphan. Maintain the right of the lowly and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. And by the way, every prophet from Samuel to Malachi keeps mixing up their religion with politics of justice. Isaiah wrote, and I will make justice the line and righteousness the plummet. And Zechariah wrote, show kindness and mercy to one another. Do not oppress the widow, the orphan, the alien, or the poor. And do not devise evil in your hearts against one another. And then Amos wrote this, which we're getting tired of. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Just what are they trying to do? Guilt us into action or something? You know what? Get them all in here. Get them all in here, line them up right across here, and we're going to start the apologies from left to right. You know, we should have expected this because the Old Testament is full of religion and politics. I mean, they're up to their armpits in politics and the religion between the kings and the prophets and everything. Fortunately for us, we have a shiny New Testament. We have a shiny New Testament. And I bet there's no one in here preaching to us about politics, right? Let me see. There's Malachi. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay, Matthew. Oh, man, look at this. Right in the beginning. Right? John the Baptist is telling people, whoever has 2 coats must share with anyone who has none. Whoever has food must do likewise. All right? And then you flip over to here, and here's Paul. For the whole law is summed up in a single commandment. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. If, however, you bite and devour one another, take care that you are not consumed by one another. You know? Loving and sharing with neighbors, huh? That ain't what I came to church for. So that's an apology each from John and Paul. I mean, who's next? George and Ringo? Sorry. Sorry about that. Couldn't help it. There's no George and Ringo in the Bible, so we're done here, right? But I found this one other guy, and this guy's the worst of all of them. Old Testament, New Testament, just reading this stuff he writes, I mean, and says and everything, it's like he owes us the biggest apology yet. Listen to this guy. This is about this guy. Listen to this. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah, there's that Old Testament guy again, was given to him. He unrolled the scroll, and he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then another thing happens. This rich young dude comes up to him, right? He wants to join his movement, right? And this guy looks at him, and it says he loved him, and he said, "You lack one thing. Go sell what you own and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and then come follow me." This guy's a socialist. With appeals like this guy, his name, by the way, is Jesus of Nazareth. He's got to be worse than all the other apologists put together. Next thing we know, Jesus is going to tell us it's more than just about aliens and refugees. You're going to tell us we need to show justice and compassion toward every distressed and disenfranchised person out there, from the veterans who are on our streets struggling with PTSD and cannot even find a home or a job, to the elderly people who went bankrupt because they couldn't pay their hospital bills, from the addict who can't kick their addiction, to the child who can't get an education in an inadequate school. The next thing you know, he's going to tell us that they're all our responsibility, that we are our brothers and our sisters' keeper. Look, Jesus, here's our beef with you. We came to church today to get away from all this. We came to worship you. We came to praise you. We came to sing about you. We came to pray to you. We didn't come here to sit in our pew and be lectured by you. We didn't come here to rise up from our pew and follow you. We didn't come here to live by your example, to live a life of compassion and unconditional love and sacrifice. Who do you think we are? Disciples? So Jesus, you need to stand before us. Jesus of Nazareth, you need to stand before us, because we ask, no, we demand an apology. Unlike the other ones, though, Jesus does come and stands before us. So here he stands just like he did before that synagogue in Nazareth 2,000 years ago. But when he opens his mouth, these are his words. "For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty. You gave me no drink. I was a stranger, you didn't welcome me. I was naked, you didn't give me any clothing. I was sick and in prison, you didn't visit me." And we'll say, "Lord, when was it we saw you hungry or thirsty, a stranger and didn't welcome you, or sick or in prison and didn't visit you?" And he says, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." Thank you, Jesus. Apology accepted.